chosen one. You didn't click on this video, heaven did. This isn't content. This is a divine interruption, a summons, a signal, a scroll opening in real time, with your name etched in the ink of eternity. You have been moving through this life like a mystery, even to yourself. But what if I told you someone saw you before you were ever born? What if I told you the ancient prophet Enoch, yes, the one who walked with God and was taken without death, recorded your spirit in his visions of the end? If you know you were led here for a reason, hit like to align with this word. Subscribe to stay in the flow of what heaven is releasing. And comment 99 right now. He saw you in his sleep, in his waking, in the thunders that spoke in tongues. Only angels understood. He saw people who would rise at the end, not robed in fame, but cloaked in fire, not recognized by crowns, but marked by scars that glowed like prophecy. He saw you walking through modern streets with ancient eyes, carrying sacred codes in your blood, remembering things you were never taught, speaking with an authority you never rehearsed. You keep trying to blend in, but how do you shrink what heaven designed to shift atmospheres? You were always different, because you were always chosen not by men, not by systems, but by the Most High before the foundations were even spoken into dust. Enoch didn't just record timelines. He recorded bloodlines, frequencies, fragments of fire that would awaken in the very last days. And your flame is flaring now. You felt it. That tug, that restlessness, the eerie sense that you were sent here on assignment. But everyone around you is sleepwalking through a script you can no longer tolerate. That is not anxiety when beloved. That is reactivation. That is the scroll breathing inside your bones. That is your destiny pressing up against the shell of your survival strategies and saying, break. Enoch saw a generation that would be betrayed by their own kin and still choose love. He saw those who would be exiled from churches, but carry the actual presence. He saw misfits who would wear isolation like armor until heaven said move. He saw warriors who would first have to die 1,000 emotional deaths before their voice could pierce this final darkness. That is why you have wept the way you have. That is why nothing superficial can satisfy you anymore. The world is playing chess, but you have already seen the endgame in a dream you cannot fully remember. You have been walking among mortals with eternity tapping on your spirit, and the tapping is getting louder. This is not nostalgia. This is soul recall. Your spirit is scanning for coordinates. It remembers from before time folded. That burn in your belly isn't hunger. It is scroll ink, and it is alive. You have been hunted by darkness because hell read the same book Enoch did. They saw your name in the margin. They circled your birth with dread, because you don't just carry light, you carry the code to interrupt patterns, destroy systems, and shatter altars built on counterfeit fire. You were always the anomaly, the glitch in the grid, the silent disruption wrapped in ordinary camouflage. But now the camouflage is tearing, the divine is leaking, the prophecy is peeking through your skin, and Enoch is watching from the cloud of witnesses, whispering it is time. You are not random, you are not crazy, you are not too late. You are the one the scroll was speaking of when it said, and they shall rise with remembrance in their eyes and thunder in their breath. You are that thunder. They called you lost, but you were sealed. You weren't forgotten. You were concealed, hidden behind veils, tucked into silence, placed inside families and cities and timelines that tried to bury what God marked before breath ever kissed your lungs. You have felt invisible for years, but invisibility is heaven's version of insulation. Enoch saw it. He wrote of the ones who were sealed for the appointed time, marked not with tattoos or crowns, but with vibrations, frequencies that only angels could detect, protected by obscurity, hidden in plain sight. You weren't placed in the shadows because you weren't good enough. You were placed there so darkness wouldn't detect you too early. The sealed ones move through trauma, through poverty, through systems designed to numb them, and still carry light like contraband. You are not struggling because you are broken. You are struggling because you are carrying something uncorrupted in a corrupted world, and you have always known, even when you couldn't name it, even when you tried to sin like the rest, and it didn't fit right on your skin, even when you tried to give up and heaven said not yet. There is a reason you survived what others didn't. There is a reason the enemy threw everything at you young, before you had words for spiritual warfare, before you had memory of the scroll that now flutters open in your chest. You were sealed because you are part of a remnant that would only activate once the world hit a certain vibration. You don't bloom in comfort. You bloom in chaos. Your frequency is fire-resistant, system-proof, undeniable, and that is why the enemy couldn't kill you. He tried. In your sleep, through lovers, through fear, but you slipped through his fingers like mist, because the seal covered you, because the Most High spoke your survival into existence long before your parents even knew your name. You are part of the mystery that Paul wrote about. The hidden ones, the vessels of glory tucked in earthen containers. You have been walking around like you are just trying to make it. But heaven has been preparing you to release it. The sound, the shift, the signal, and now the seal is cracking. You are starting to feel it, aren't you? That strange sense that your suffering wasn't meaningless, that your voice is carrying new weight, that when you walk into a room, something invisible rearranges. People glance at you like they heard a sound but didn't. That is because your seal is beginning to speak. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to disrupt. You carry a disruptive frequency that exposes the counterfeit. That is why certain people hated you before they knew you. It wasn't you they despised. It was the seal they couldn't understand. The sealed ones don't beg for platforms. They become altars. They don't chase visibility. They carry authority. And it is that authority, buried under your battle scars, that is now rising to the surface like oil from crushed olives. You have been walking like a wounded soldier, but you are about to roar like the oracle you were always meant to be. Enoch saw your seal in the stars. He saw it before Babel tried to scramble your voice, before Pharaoh tried to work your ancestors into dust, before trauma tried to convince you that silence was survival. He saw your mark, glowing with codes that only the final remnant would carry. And now that remnant is stirring, you are not just chosen, you are sealed for glory, and heaven is now peeling back the veil. They didn't reject you. They rejected what they couldn't name. You keep replaying those moments in your head when they laughed at your purity, when they ghosted your loyalty, when they mocked the visions you tried to whisper into safe ears. But hear me. Beloved, rejection was never a punishment. It was training. It was God's way of filtering out anything that could not carry your oil. Enoch saw it. He recorded it. That the ones chosen for the final hour would walk through wilderness after wilderness, stripped of applause, misunderstood in rooms that claimed to be spiritual, and broken open by betrayal that felt too cruel to be coincidence. But heaven doesn't train warriors in palaces. You were never meant to be celebrated too soon. Celebration is a seduction when the assignment is still embryonic. So God hid you in rejection, let loneliness be your tutor, and forged your voice in silence so pure it could shatter lies with a whisper. Look at your life again. What if the abandonment wasn't about them walking away, but about God clearing the space for your revelation? What if every closed door was heaven's hand making room for a sound that needed stillness to grow? This is why you have always felt the ache, why people hugged you but never held you, why they loved your gift but never saw your soul, why every group, every job, every church felt like an itchy garment, like you were wearing someone else's assignment. Because you were never called to blend in, you were called to break through. You have been in divine isolation, not exile consecration. A holy distance from noise, from idols, from the mimicry that would try to dress you in Saul's armor. And yes, it hurt. You screamed, you questioned, you almost gave up. But pain has a language heaven understands. Your tears were scrolls too, and angels read every one. Let me tell you a secret. The devil hoped you had never hear the greater your assignment, the lonelier you are becoming, because who you are called to reach cannot reach you yet. You have been wearing garments of grief, not because you are weak, but because your spirit was shedding everything not rooted in truth. Enoch saw it. He saw chosen ones sitting at tables, smiling through rejection, sensing betrayal in the spirit before it ever came in words. He saw prophets eating alone. He saw kings weeping in caves. He saw you carrying wounds like wine presses, and yet you survived. And not just survived, you kept your purity, you kept your softness, you kept your discernment, you kept your love even when it wasn't returned. That is not weakness. That is evidence of sealing. You see, your spiritual rejection is a marking. It means heaven is claiming you before the world tries to name you. And that loneliness, it is not a curse. It is proof you are carrying something that demands sacred space to grow. That is why the call stopped, why the doors closed, why the room got quiet. Because heaven is protective of power, and you are carrying a word that has the potential to break chains not just off yourself, but generations you thought they walked away. But really, heaven walked you apart. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. For such a time as this, you are not waking up, you are remembering. This has never been about learning something new. No need to worry. This is about the unfolding of what your soul already knows. That pull in your chest, that strange familiarity with spiritual things you have never studied, it is memory, ancient, holy, buried deep in your bones like a sealed scroll waiting for a divine touch. Enoch saw this moment in his visions, saw people who wouldn't awaken through religion or rules, but through remembrance, people who wouldn't just quote scripture, but embody it, walk it, become it. Carriers of divine code, written not on tablets of stone, but in the lining of their spirit. You were never asleep in the way others are. Your soul has always been flickering, like a candle under glass, waiting, watching, wondering when it would finally be time to remove the lid and let the fire speak. And now the wind of God is breathing on that flame. That discontent in your belly is not depression, that sudden urge to separate, to detox from noise, to fast without even knowing why. That is your spirit syncing with eternity. That is the voice of God calling memory out of your marrow. You have been walking through this world like a dreamer stuck between dimensions, catching glimpses of a realm you couldn't describe, but deeply felt. When you were a child, you called them dreams. Now, you know better. They were instructions. fragments of your mission. Delivered in metaphor. You didn't forget your purpose. You were veiled from it. Until now, every strange emotional wave during worship, every random tear falling when someone says something simple like, "Come home," these are memory activations, echoes of the realm you came from. And now that realm is calling you back into alignment. You were not designed to be normal. You were encoded for remembrance. That is why the things that fulfill others leave you hollow, why you cannot just work a job, pay bills and die, because inside you, the scroll is shaking. It is itching to unfold. Your soul isn't seeking stimulation, it is searching for the signal. That divine signal is remembrance, and it is crashing through the surface right now. You feel it in your sleep pattern shifting. You feel it in the way certain words pierce you like prophecy. You feel it when you speak and suddenly someone else's eyes widen because what you said wasn't from your mind, but from your eternal knowing. You are remembering the oaths you took in the spirit before you ever took a breath in the flesh. You are remembering the assignment that made demons tremble when you were still in the womb. You are remembering the altar you once stood before in realms unseen, where the Most High touched your forehead and said, "This one will carry the sound." You don't need another guru. You need silence, stillness, in a sacred space to let the remembering finish its work. Enoch saw people who would walk like prophets but feel like exiles. He saw them move through cities and realms like living scrolls, unfolding truth in conversations, in presence, in breath. He saw you remembering. So don't fight this process. It is not your breakdown. It is your awakening to what never left you. And now that it is rising, nothing can stop what heaven sealed inside your soul. You didn't just come from your parents, you came through them. You are the embodiment of prayers whispered in secret and groans too deep for language. Your ancestors didn't just survive for survival's sake. They were carrying something forward, a sacred ember, a frequency, a torch sealed in blood and memory, passed through generations until it found a vessel strong enough to bear it fully. That vessel is you. Enoch saw this too. He recorded in his visions that in the final era, a generation would rise that carried not just their own purpose, but the unfinished business of those who came before. People whose lives were cut short, whose altars were desecrated, whose callings were buried under the rubble of colonization, slavery, war, silence, and shame. He saw you carrying all of it and refusing to let it die. That is why your life feels so heavy. It is not because you are weak, it is because you are carrying generations. You are breaking curses that have been rooted for centuries. You are healing wounds that weren't yours, but bled through your bloodstream anyway. You are answering questions your great-grandmother cried into her pillow. You are standing in the fulfillment of promises made under stars long extinguished. This is why you are so spiritually sensitive, why you can enter a room and feel what happened before you arrived, why you have always had a strange pull toward the old ways, the sacred rituals, the prophetic dreams, because your soul remembers what your flesh forgot. And now heaven is giving you the language for it. You are the echo in the answer, the living bridge, the walking redemption. They paid the price, but you are carrying the breakthrough. The trauma in your lineage was real, but so were the dreams, the visions, the anointing, the ancient wisdom, and you are the one chosen to activate what was left sleeping in the blood. This is why the enemy came for you so early. Why you were targeted with self-hatred, insecurity, and confusion before you even understood your own voice. Because if you ever woke up to what you were carrying, you would become dangerous to every demonic system built on generational silence. Well, guess what? You are not asleep anymore. You are starting to see it. Aren't you the patterns in your family? The loops, the lies, the wounds that were normalized, and deep in your spirit, something has been rising that says no more. That is the sound of ancestral alignment. That is the moment the bloodline flips. That is the fire Enoch saw in the eyes of the end-time ones. The fire that doesn't just weep for history, but redeems it. You are not here to repeat. You are here to rebuild. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be faithful to what is rising in your bones, because your obedience is unlocking doors that haven't budged in 400 years. The devil thought the trauma would mute you, but instead it made you tender. It made you aware. It made you dangerous to the darkness. You carry both memory and mandate. That is why you feel the ache to speak, to write, to sing, to create even when no one's watching, because it is not about applause. It is about alignment. The prophecy didn't die in the grave. It resurrected in you. The deepest pain you endured wasn't meaningless. It was prophetic encryption. You have cried out asking why it had to happen like that, why the betrayal had to come from the one you loved most, why the abuse had to happen in your formative years, why the trauma didn't skip you. But what if I told you that your pain wasn't punishment? It was placement. Enoch saw the ones who would carry fire born from agony. He didn't just see priests. He saw wounded warriors whose scars glowed with messages. He saw chosen ones whose anointing was unlocked only through heartbreak, loss, and lonely nights that bled into revelation. You weren't destroyed. You were decoded. The trauma didn't break you. It rearranged your spirit so it could align with the assignment. What happened to you wasn't fair, but heaven used it. The very thing that tried to make you silent is the thing that made your voice irresistible to angels. You are not here in spite of the pain. You are here because of it. That betrayal, it trained your discernment. That abandonment, it taught you how to walk with God when no one else stayed. That assault on your innocence, it ignited a fire in you to protect what others forgot to guard. You are not just healing for you. You are mapping a way out for those who come after you. Pain is a strange teacher. It doesn't give lectures. It gives blueprints. It doesn't shout at brands, and you, chosen one, have been branded by experience so sacred. Even the angels hush when you cry, because your tears have become oil. Do you see it now? How every dark room became a womb. How every collapse was actually an altar. How every silence you endured was making your voice irrefutable in the spirit realm. Enoch saw the ones who would walk through generational trauma and come out not bitter, but burning with glory. He saw people like you who would be forged in the fires of unspeakable things and still carry the fragrance of heaven. He saw ones who wouldn't have credentials, but evidence. You are that evidence. Your life is proof that the prophecy lives. Your story is a scroll in motion. Every moment you nearly gave up but didn't was a page turned. Every time you showed up when your heart was bleeding was another seal broken. This is what makes you dangerous. Not that you are perfect, but that you are obedient in pain, that even with a limp, you still say yes to the assignment. Even with a crushed heart, you still choose to love. Even with questions unanswered, you still move in faith. That is power. Heaven doesn't need another polished sermon. It needs your survival story spoken out loud. It needs your voice trembling but true. It needs your brokenness turned into blueprints, because someone else is waiting on your obedience to remember their own. You didn't just survive trauma, you translated it into anointing. And now the vibration of your very presence is an active defiance against darkness. You are the prophecy in motion. You are the encryption unlocked. You are the one hell couldn't silence. You are always a system disruptor from the beginning. You questioned what others accepted. You heard what others ignored. You sensed when the room shifted before anyone said a word. You were born with antennae tuned to a different realm. And every time you tried to mute them, the static only grew louder. Enoch saw you in the Matrix before the Matrix even existed. He saw the ones who would walk among systems of control and carry such a raw, disruptive frequency that institutions would tighten the moment they entered. He saw how your presence would irritate spirits pretending to be structure. You didn't just have a hard time fitting in. You were never meant to, because systems built on falsehood cannot hold what is holy. And you chosen one are holy, not sanitized, but set apart. You keep wondering why you get drained in certain environments, why the job suffocates your spirit, why the church felt more like a stage than an altar. It is because your spirit refuses to conform, because your body enters a room, but your frequency starts turning over tables the moment you exhale. That is not anxiety, it is reverberation. Your frequency is awakening the silent screams in others, shaking the dust off dormant souls, collapsing masks. You carry a sound that cannot be digitized or domesticated. This is why they tried to tame you, why they told you to be quieter, why they said you were too intense, too emotional, too sensitive. Because your fire made their shadows nervous. Your clarity made their confusion start to crack. Your presence demanded honesty, and they weren't ready to tell the truth. But you weren't sent to be palatable. You were sent to be prophetic. You are not here to make the world more comfortable. You are here to make it remember. Enoch saw a generation who would refuse the programming, who would look at Babylon and say, "I am not eating your food," who would sit in classrooms and decode the lies beneath the curriculum, who would flip over internal tables, flipping silence into testimony. And that is you. That has always been you. That is why systems pushed you out. Not because you failed them, but because your frequency exposed them. You weren't rebellious. You were resonating on a higher level. You weren't defiant. You were divinely tuned. They couldn't handle your questions because your questions revealed their foundations weren't built on truth. They couldn't embrace your creativity because your art wasn't for applause. It was for awakening. They couldn't predict you. And what they cannot predict, they fear. But fear from the system is often confirmation from heaven. Because you weren't sent to build altars and broken temples, you were sent to become the altar, a living, breathing, walking interruption, a soul with thunder in its bones and clarity in its veins, disruptor, an awakener, a divine anomaly. You are not here to be understood, you are here to be obeyed, so stop shrinking, stop apologizing for being the sound. You are not too much. You are the exact measure needed to dismantle deception. You are very being as a protest. Your presence is a prophecy. Your frequency is a warning shot to darkness. The sealed one has arrived. You didn't come to play by the rules, you came to reveal they were rigged. From a young age, something in you just knew. The way they taught truth didn't feel true. The way they defined power didn't feel pure. The way they spoke about God felt like someone had watered down a roaring fire into a tame flicker. And you weren't buying it. Enoch saw the ones who wouldn't just walk in light, but confront the counterfeit, not from bitterness, but from alignment, not because you wanted to tear it all down, but because your very existence exposed what could no longer stay hidden. You weren't born to echo the narrative. You were born to shift it. That is why your spirit never let you rest. Why every time you tried to settle into something comfortable, it cracked beneath your feet. You cannot stand in falsehood without feeling your own soul recoil. You have tried to be quiet, tried to play the role, but the truth kept bubbling up in your throat like prophecy. And that is because you are a divine disruptor to deception. You have got holy eyes, you see things, not just in people, but in systems, in structures. In doctrine, you can sense the difference between performance and power, between hype and holiness, between titles and true anointing. It is exhausting, isn't it? To be the one who sees it all, to feel like you are walking through a world of sleep, shouting from a place no one seems to recognize. But what if I told you that shout is the reason you were sent? You weren't called to blend in with the lie. You were sent to call it by its real name. Enoch saw you rising not as a critic, but as a clarifier. He saw ones who would speak with such piercing conviction that even the spirits hiding behind pulpits would tremble. He saw you confronting deception not with arrogance, but with heaven-backed authority. That is why they tried to shame you, why they called you too much, too deep, too suspicious. Because you saw through what they were still clapping for. But beloved, don't you dare dull your sight. Your vision is not a curse, it is a weapon, and the more you honor it, the clearer it gets. This is why you have always felt at odds with institutions, why the rituals felt empty, why you could sit in a room full of believers and still feel God more in your car alone, with no music playing. You are not crazy. You are calibrated for real glory. You are wired for unfiltered presence. You carry a compass that only aligns with heaven, and heaven is speaking now. Stop asking to be understood by what I sent you to overturn. Your job isn't to be liked. It is to be true. You are a breaker of illusions, a mirror to facades, a voice that makes demons squirm and masks melt. And you don't need a title or a robe or a pulpit to do it. You just need to stand in your knowing, because when you speak, deception crumbles. When you enter, darkness recalibrates. When you refuse to agree with the lie, the scroll keeps opening. You are the correction the earth has been groaning for. You are the one who came to remind them. Truth still walks, and today it wears your name. Heaven is breaking every false identity off you. Everything they called you, every label they slapped on your soul was never who you really were. You have worn names that felt like cages, identities that were handed to you by wounded people who never saw your spirit, only your survival. But those names are burning now, because heaven is speaking the original over you again. Enoch saw the unveiling. He saw a time when the chosen ones would shed every lie they had to wear to survive. When the mass would melt, when the trauma-formed personalities would begin to crack like old skin, He saw warriors who once called themselves worthless rise with scrolls in their veins and thrones in their walk. And that is you, isn't it? You felt it lately, the shedding, the grief that comes not from loss, but from mislabeling, from realizing you have been living under names that never belonged to you, names like too sensitive, too weird, too intense, too broken, names that tried to shrink your frequency into something safe for others. But God didn't call you safe. God called you set apart. And now He is tearing every false title off your chest, every counterfeit role, every identity shaped by trauma instead of truth. This is not a breakdown. It is a divine stripping, a holy unveiling of what was always underneath glory. The world said you were too emotional. Heaven says you are prophetic. They said you were rebellious. Heaven says you are righteous. They said you were unstable. Heaven says you are ascending. You never fit in because you weren't supposed to. The name they gave you couldn't contain the oil you carry. You weren't sent to wear their titles, you were sent to embody His fire. Enoch saw people rising who would shake off every garment of shame, every costume of compliance, every cloak of counterfeit humility. And you, chosen one, are stepping into that moment now. The mirror is clearing, the scroll is revealing, and your real name, the one heaven has always known, as ringing in the spirit. That name is not insecure. It is not forgotten. It is not too late. It is anointed. It is dangerous. It is beloved. You were never the black sheep. You were the blue flame, the rare kind that burns hotter, deeper, more precise. And now that fire is consuming everything that tried to tame you. This is why you are losing interest in old friendships, why certain conversations suddenly feel hollow, why you are drawn to silence more than noise. Heaven is recalibrating your identity from the inside out. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to who you have always been. The unveiling hurts, doesn't it, to realize how long you have worn costumes, how much of your life was spent earning acceptance for a version of you that was never true. But don't let that grief lie to you. It is not too late. You haven't missed it. You are not behind. You are right on time for the revealing. The same God who sealed you is now announcing you, not with a shout, but with a recognition. The right ones are starting to see you. The old rooms no longer fit, because you, chosen one, are shedding the shell. This is your reintroduction, not as who they named you, but as who heaven knows you are. And that name, it shakes hell when whispered, and summons angels when spoken aloud. The unveiling has already begun. You have been waiting for some loud moment, some angelic trumpet, some prophetic billboard in the sky to tell you it is time. But listen closely. The trumpet is in your bones. The scroll is already open. The activation didn't begin with this message. It began the moment you survived what tried to bury you. Enoch saw a generation that wouldn't just rise, they would remember, reclaim, and reveal. He saw them crack open like thunder, shedding centuries of silence with every step. He saw chosen ones moving through timelines like divine earthquakes, waking up bloodlines and shaking systems just by breathing in alignment. And chosen one, that is you. You keep waiting for the sign, not realizing you are the sign. The evidence, the echo of a prophecy that has already been declared in heaven's courtroom. You are not being activated. You are the activation. You don't need permission to rise. You need permission to stop hiding, and heaven is revoking your hiding place. No more shrinking, no more spiritual amnesia, No more apologizing for the way you move. See, feel, burn. You have been marked for this moment since before time wore a name. Since Enoch was taken up and saw a scroll with your silhouette etched in the margins. That silhouette is standing up now. You can feel it, cannot you? The vibration behind your ribs. The shaking that isn't fear. It is familiarity. The internal thunder that is not anxiety, but alignment. Your spirit already knows the script. Your body is just catching up to what your soul never forgot. This is why you have been restless. Why the world suddenly feels too small. Why mediocrity tastes bitter. Why you cannot pretend to be asleep anymore. Because the scroll has turned to your page, and your name is being read aloud in the spirit. You have been speaking in riddles, but now your words carry reverberation. You have been walking softly, but now your footsteps cause atmospheres to shift. You have been dreaming quietly, but now heaven is saying, declare it boldly. You are not preparing to rise. You are in mid-rise. Everything that happened was not detour. It was divine route. Every heartbreak redirected your anointing. Every delay was God guarding the door until the real you arrived to walk through it. You are not behind schedule. You are right on divine time. Enoch saw this. He saw the veils being torn, not in temples made by hands, but in temples made of flesh. In people like you who would awaken not just to their calling, but to their cosmic context. Your story is not small. It is scroll-sized, and you are now living in the sentence, heaven never stopped writing. So listen again, the trumpets you are waiting for. They are already echoing inside you. You are the sound. You are the shift. You are the one Enoch saw. And heaven has already released your name into the wind. Now rise not like the world told you to, not like your trauma conditioned you to. Rise as the one who knows you are always the prophecy. So now breathe. Let this truth settle like gold dust in your soul. Let the names fall off. Let the timelines collapse. Let every false thing dissolve in the light of this revelation. You were seen before you ever stood, known before you ever spoke, chosen before you ever cried. The world may never understand what heaven hid inside you, but it will feel you when you walk into alignment. You don't need validation. You are validation. You don't need to be crowned. You were sealed. Let your breath slow. Let the flame in your belly glow steady now. No need to rush. No need to prove. Just become what the scroll already declared. And when the voices of fear return, because they will remind them, I am the one Enoch saw. I am the one they couldn't stop. I am the activation disguised as a survivor. I am God's chosen in this final time. Now rise with stillness in your soul and fire in your step. The unveiling is done, the remembering is real, and the world will never be the same because you woke up. Comment below if your spirit bore witness. I was seen by Enoch and activated by God.